Don't fall asleep, Daniel, in that comfy chair. Good evening, everyone, and I would like to welcome you and call our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, January the 19th to order. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Welcome to the first full week of stay-at-home orders. We are in the third week of January, the third week of 2021. Since we last met, so much has happened. The good news is we only have 49 weeks left of 2021. It can only get better, right? It is hard to stay at home, and I want to say thank you to our residents for their efforts. Typically, I lead a very busy life, and prior to our first lockdown, and then again into the fall, I would have said I would have welcomed a forced reason to stay at home. However, the choice of staying at home feels very different than when you being forced to stay at home. To be mindful of every reason as to why you are going out, and of course, where you are going. I watched a WHO news conference last week, and I was struck by one powerful presentation, and I have taken it on almost as a mantra. This disease stops with me. Wow. It certainly puts the onus on the individual, doesn't it? And I would ask you to adopt that as your mantra, to commit to that. Focus on the I, the me, on the role of the individual, the role that we must all play. What can I do to ensure that spread is limited? What is my responsibility? If we all take stock of our place in this, then we will continue to get through. I also want to take a minute to congratulate and encourage our Lucan Biddulph small businesses, services, and restaurants that continue to be creative in keeping business going during these most challenging times. Our residents have shown how important it is to them to support local. So please continue to do so. And it's very easy to do so. Purchase something through an online local store and arrange for curbside pickup. Grocery shop here. Have your prescription processed here. Order a gift certificate to be used for a future purchase. And of course, have a takeout meal. Supporting local businesses and keeping it local supports community. To our families who have so much on their plate to juggle, working from home, online learning, the loss of organized recreational activities, the loss of interaction between friends. I saw a Facebook post earlier today from a mom thanking her neighbor for snow blowing their driveway, which in itself, of course, is a wonderful thing to see. But more importantly, her young son was thrilled to watch the activity of her neighbor snow blowing the driveway. It entertained him for the 20 minutes or so that it took the driveway to be cleared. And it gave that mom a break. Oh, it's just the little things during this time. Councillor Westman just shared with me how gratifying it is for him to see neighbors helping neighbors, how it's really the simple kindnesses that are being shown to our friends and family and strangers and essential workers, frontline workers, that are so important. I was very encouraged this weekend when I saw a very creative way for young neighbors to play together. The kids met at their windows and wrote notes, shared signs back and forth. They played with puppets. I even understand there might have been a dance party. Creativity is the key to getting through these next few weeks. Be open to the new ways to interact, to find a way to connect and be present with family and friends. It's hard work, but it's our responsibility, and we are all in this together. So the first item on our agenda actually is a public meeting under the Planning Act. So I do need a motion for us to adjourn our regular meeting and then convene a public meeting under the Planning Act. If I could get a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan, and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that's carried. So Dan, welcome. And if you can walk us through the removal of the H symbol. This is something that we've done before, so it should be familiar to most of us.
Through the members, thanks, and hello to all the members of council. So for this specific item, we've had a request from the developer in the Old Clover Village / Lucan Estates subdivision to remove a holding provision for lands that are already approved, draft plan approved and final approved, and do have a subdivision agreement in place. So the particular parcel of land in this case is a 2.6 hectare or 6.43 acre parcel that's located on the north side of Spencer Ave with Watts Drive, Jefferson Street, and Old Clover Drive. I kind of run through the lands in the Old Clover Village subdivision as well as Lucan Estates subdivision. The lands in question are intended for the construction of single detached dwellings, and they are currently zoned a residential first density exception holding R1-8-H zone. So as noted in the planning report, the holding provision was added to the zone to ensure that the developer entered into a development agreement with the township, that the agreement was registered, and that final approval and registration of the subdivision was completed. The prerequisites for the removal of the holding symbol in this case have been satisfied, recognizing that the development is subject to a subdivision agreement. It has been registered and final approval has been given by the county, and we have received the registered M plan from the Land Registry's office. So at this time, removal of the holding would be consistent with the provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, as well as the Township of Lucan Biddulph official plan. So with that said, given the above, planning staff is satisfied that the prerequisites of the holding removal have been successfully completed, and do recommend that the subject application be approved and that the implementing bylaw be brought forward for council consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Dan. Are there any questions or comments for Dan on that? Okay, so with that, we need to reconvene our regular council meeting, and then I would ask for a motion during our council meeting to accept the planner's report, and then there's a bylaw at the end of the meeting that will pass. So if I could get a motion to reconvene our regular meeting, that would be great. Councillor Westman and Councillor Masterakis, all opposed? So now we are in our regular meeting, and then just a motion to accept the planner's report. Mover and seconder for that.
Motion to accept.
Councillor Regan, Councillor Westman, all opposed, and that's carried. Now, I don't think, Dan, you've got necessarily any reports for later on, but there's some bylaws that we're going to be passing. And so in an effort so that you don't have to stick and sit through the whole council meeting, did you want to speak to those and then deliver any comments? And then we can deal with that now.
Through the chair, yep. So I can certainly do that. So there are two bylaws attached to the agenda tonight that haven't been specifically spoken to at this point in time. So the first one is bylaw 042021, which is the execution of the Thames Valley District School Board Site Plan amending agreement. And that particular agreement is with respect to Wilberforce School. Through that specific application, they were looking to, or are looking to, increase their parking capacity within the existing school site. So they have expanded the existing parking area kind of to the south of the existing parking area, which includes 19 additional parking stalls. They've also, through their site plan, readjusted the existing pedestrian access point in through that most southern portion, and have also readjusted the northern exit of the site to create it a bit more wider to allow for vehicular access out. And I believe they're also looking to formalize their waste pickup area as well, which they've included on the plan. So if there's any questions, I can certainly answer those as well. And then the other item on the agenda is bylaw 201/2021, which is a bylaw or an implementing bylaw for the zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 1-2020, which was associated with consent application B1-2020, which was a consent and zoning bylaw amendment application for a surplus residence farm dwelling severance. So in this particular case, there was a condition of the consent that required the individual to rezone the lands to a site-specific surplus dwelling SD/3 zone, which does recognize the undersized nature of the frontage. Additionally, the remnant lands are rezoned to an agricultural A3 zone to prohibit any future residences from being built on that remnant parcel. So as a condition, council did pass the bylaw at the previous meeting. However, we required that the implementing bylaw be brought forward once a registered reference plan had been provided by the applicant. So the municipality has received that reference plan now from Land Registry's office. It is complete. So the bylaw is being brought forward for council consideration.
Okay, thank you for that, Dan. Are there any questions on those two bylaws that we'll be dealing with at the end of the meeting? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dan, with the Thames Valley site plan, and I'm looking at it, and I'm not an expert on blueprints, but I'm just wondering, does that expansion of that parking lot have anything to do with whether or not it can expand classroom space? Is that interfering with that?
So through the chair, no, it's more just a function of the existing site. They haven't identified a need at this point in time to expand classroom capacity. Ron and myself, and I believe maybe a couple others, did have a meeting with Thames Valley in their planning department. Kind of when was that? Earlier in January, I believe. We kind of discussed schools and what population projections are in the municipality and what the implications are. So they are aware of the situation, but with respect to this particular case, it's more just a stopgap to address the situation that's ongoing on the property. As I understand that there are parking concerns at this point in time, so that's really what they're doing at this particular point in time.
Follow up, Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will that also alleviate the pickup and drop off for students, a safety issue, the buses, those sorts of things? I've heard just a couple of inquiries about that. So is that supposed to sort of help with all of that as well?
Through the chair, yeah, I believe so. So that they are both extending their parking area as well as the actual queue line for the bus drop off.
All right.
Along the front edge of the school.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions on those two bylaws? Okay, great. Thanks so much, Dan. Feel free to enjoy your evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you. We do have one delegation this evening, and I'm pleased to welcome tonight Marina Chayich from Lambton Shores, the Lambton Shores Transit Project. And as we know, there is a stop in Lucan that's part of that. And we're excited to learn more about the project. And so Marina, it's great to have you, and welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint presentation so you could see.
Great.
Hopefully you could see that.
Yep, it's good.
Perfect. So once again, my name is Marina Chayich. I'm the transit coordinator for Huron Shores Area Transit, the pilot project. So I was hired in September 2020 by the municipality of Lambton Shores to sort of get this project up and going through the community transportation grant, which they applied for back in 2017. So it's been a little bit of a slow startup, but we're finally here. The project officially launched on December 14th, 2020. And prior to this, my experience is and has always been in public transit planning, scheduling, manpower and operations. So I'm very familiar with this, and I'm very happy to be part of the project. So in terms of the pilot project, it is funded until March 31st, 2023. So it was originally supposed to be a 5-year pilot project, but because of the slow start and then due to delays from COVID, we sort of launched later than anticipated. We were supposed to launch in March of last year, but we ended up launching in December of 2020. So this program supports local and inter-community bus service in areas that are unserved or underserved by public transit. And it will make it more convenient for residents of Ontario to access essential services in their communities, to connect with other transportation services, and also to make travel between cities, towns, and municipalities a lot easier. So I'll be touching on a few things in regards to the project and sort of where we are now. I'll be discussing a little bit about COVID-19 and the safety measures we're taking, the route schedules and fares, our website, our advisory committee, and then joining SCT, which is another organization, Southwestern Community Transit. So a few other transit agencies are involved in this already, and a little bit about our ridership, which is very preliminary so far. So our service provider is Boyego. A little bit about them: they are very familiar with this region and Ontario in general. They have about 50,000 daily passengers across the province. Currently, they provide service in Guelph Owen Sound, in Tillsonburg, Strathroy Caradoc, Caledon Transit, Middlesex County, Perth County, and now us. And they continue to expand. So I'm going to show you a picture of the buses, which you may have seen on the road, or perhaps you've had the opportunity to ride. So this is a picture of what the bus looks like. It's an 18-seater bus with 2 wheelchair positions. It does have a rear wheelchair lift, so it is accessible and meets all AODA standards. We currently have bus storage in Lambton College in Sarnia, as well as Sobeys Plaza in Grand Bend. So right now we just have 2 of these new buses and 2 spare buses in case these break down. So there've been, as you know, lots of delays and setbacks just in general with COVID. Public transit is considered essential. So we continue to operate a regular schedule during the provincial shutdown, but we're taking safety very seriously. So we have a few things we're doing to make sure that we're keeping the passengers and the operators safe. It includes additional cleaning, particularly high touch points. Masks are mandatory on board. There's a bioshield between the driver and the passengers for added safety. And then our ridership is quite low, so automatically social distancing is sort of in effect on the buses. We don't have a large passenger count at the moment, so it's not a concern that we have right now. So our routes, we have 4 routes in total. The first one is the Sarnia to Grand Bend route and back. That's Monday to Sunday, and there's 2 round trips daily. The route 2 is the one that goes through Lucan. So that starts in Grand Bend. It goes through Dashwood, Exeter, Huron Park, Lucan, on the way to London, and then it comes back. So service is Monday to Sunday. There's 2 round trips daily so far. And then we also have 2 smaller routes that connect Bayfield to Grand Bend, and then Elsa Craig, Park Hill to Grand Bend. And these same buses are the ones that continue on to London. So we're sort of trying this out and seeing how it goes. We're open to expanding the schedule, changing the schedule, and making sure that it meets the needs of the people using the service. In regards to pricing, we have a zone-based system in place. So the more zones you pass, the higher the price is. So basically depends on distance traveled. And the payment options that we have currently are cash. We're actually installing a smart card system. We're in the process of installing it. So that will allow passengers to buy a card, to load it with funds online or in person or on the bus, and tap the card when they enter the bus and tap it again when they exit the bus. So So depending on how many zones they pass, they'll be charged accordingly. And you could find more information. I'll touch on the website a little bit later, but there is more information on pricing on the website. So you could actually select where you're starting from and where you're going to, and it'll give you the price, the fare. So the route map, this is sort of what it looks like currently. So the blue is Route 2 that goes through Lucan. And hopefully as time passes, this is a 3-year project, we could expand or change things around a little bit and also add stops. I know that I've spoken to Lisa about potentially adding another stop or 2 in Lucan in the future on the other side of town. So that is a possibility. If the demand is there, we're very open to doing that. So the website is HuronShoresAreaTransit.ca. You could find routes, schedules, and fare information there. The whole website is AODA compliant as well. There's a customer service line that you could find on the website, and here as well, it's 1-888-465-0783. And we're also on Facebook at Huron Shores Area Transit on there as well. Like I mentioned previously, we have an advisory committee set up right now. So just are representatives of the general public, the business community, social agencies, and some municipalities. And the purpose of this committee is basically to advise me and assist me in coordinating this project. We continually review service delivery. We are also balancing some of the fiscal realities. We're meeting demands placed on the service, and we're continually looking at ridership information as it comes to make sure that we're adjusting service as needed. And we're working to ensure sustainability of this transit system beyond the grant pilot project, which ends on March 31st, 2023. So hopefully, if demand is there and ridership is there, we could continue on and continue to expand and fund this project. There is a membership that we're part of. It's called Southwest Community Transit, and that's comprised of municipalities and not-for-profit organizations in Southwestern Ontario. So I've been in touch with other transit coordinators, and we're trying to figure out how best to connect our systems so that if someone is traveling beyond Lambton Shores or beyond Huron Shores, there are options to connect. We want consistent messaging across all regions. We want to coordinate some of the marketing promotions so that it all looks very similar and to leverage economies of scale. To have a common website for riders as well so that they can access this information. And then to develop similar policies for accessibility to ensure a seamless service. Currently, we're working on getting an agreement with Masonville so that we could all share a stop to make transfers a lot easier. So this is very preliminary as of right now. I just have stats for our first month, or rather half month of running. So this sort of happened in the midst of one of the lockdowns. Hopefully our ridership does improve, and I'm sure it will. But for those 2 weeks, we saw 19 passengers on Route 1. On Route 2, we had 26 with 3 people from Lucan trying out the service. And then we had a maximum daily count across all the routes of 7 passengers. So I think that's not too bad for a new service, and we'll see how that progresses over the next couple months. And particularly in the summer, we expect to see a lot more riders. And I'm happy to share that information with you as it comes as well. And we are also considering applying for the gas tax once this pilot project is over. The government of Ontario has dedicated a gas tax fund for public transportation. It was launched in 2004, and it provides a long-term sustainable source of funding for Ontario municipalities and contributes towards local public transit. So currently it's 2 cents per liter of gas tax. And I think it's at 3.8 billion since implementation that they're funding and supporting Ontario municipalities. We're going to look into eligibility, application criteria, and allocation policies for this program in the near future. And it will most likely be once our pilot project is done in March 2023. So our future plans, we're going to keep reviewing the demand responsive service options. We're going to analyze ridership stats and modify some of the fixed route service and schedules that we have. And we're going to continue to work with the SCT group to create seamless transfers with neighboring transit agencies as well. So that marks the end of my presentation. Just nice little information for you there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have as well.
Okay, okay, thanks. Thanks for that presentation, Marina. I was involved with the Middlesex transit pilot project that runs through Thames Center, and then we've carried it into Zora and into Oxford. And so I know, it's great when another municipality kind of looks after another municipality's needs. So thanks very much for that. I do have some questions, but I know my colleagues have questions, so I'll start with them. Questions or comments? Councillor Regan.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hi, Marina. Just a couple of questions that somebody asked me. So what is the sort of the fare, if you know, from Lucan to London to Masonville and back? Somebody asked me, do we have a seniors discount? I'm asking that. And the other thing is when you mentioned about the program going to 2023, is it solely dependent on ridership? And what's that mark that we have to make? Because I mean, the program, it's wonderful. I'm just wondering, like, where do we have to be so that this continues? Because as we get bigger, there's going to be more and more and more people going to want to take that trip, that round trip into London, I'm pretty sure.
Right. So the fare to London, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is $5 there and $5 back. And it is zone based. So there is an actual calculator on the website. So you could plug in where you're starting, where you're ending, and it'll tell you the one-way fare. And then your other question, the seniors discount. Currently, we're just doing one price, one set price, but we may consider that in the future. We are working with a transit consultant, and he has advised just to go with one set price, and then make a child's pass for free, like children under 5 ride for free. In terms of what we'd like to meet by the end of the pilot project, it sort of depends what the municipality, well, first of all, what a ridership is like. We currently have a budget going, and that sort of gives us an idea of the targets that we'd like to meet in order to be able to fund this. There is additional government funding through the gas tax program as well, so that will help quite a bit. So I think in the next few years, we're going to crunch those numbers. And there's also an option for other municipalities or other towns to contribute. So if we're passing through Lucan, you can also apply for the gas tax as well and offer and contribute some of those funds to Lambton Shores. So those are kind of the numbers and the information that we're looking to gather over the next little bit, and then be able to provide that to you and to any other municipality that benefits from the service.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Masterakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Marina, question, is this based on another model that occurs somewhere else? Or is this an original model? Just wondering if you've seen it happen, what does it look like in the future, that sort of thing.
So the actual routes are original, of course, to this area, but our consultant has worked with many other agencies that have done startups in Ontario. So in terms of that, it's pretty standard. I'm also working with new launches such as Tillsonburg and Stratford Caradoc. So I think we're basically all following a pretty similar model, and we're all working with the CT grant program. So there's certain expectations that we have to meet. But in terms of the actual routes and the planning, that has been done separately and individually through the municipality.
Follow up, sorry. So there's just wondering if there was any other location where this has been going on in country, where this has been going on for 4 or 5 years or something that's kind of a longer term template to see how it grows. Was there anything like that?
There's a few other places, communities in Ontario that have had, so they might have started 4 or 5 years ago with the CT grant, and then they've moved on from there. And usually it expands, service expands. I don't think I've seen any other community or municipality that just sort of ended the project once the CT grant was over. It usually continues, service usually expands. Transit always is a little bit slow to pick up. And we usually see that, especially in communities with elderly population or that are not comfortable using transit or never have. But for the most part, the results that I've seen and other transit coordinators I've talked to have been positive.
Thank you, Marina.
Any other comments? Councillor Manders, or Deputy Mayor Manders, sorry.
Well, just wondering, what would you say the target market is? Is it for retired people? Would you say it's for weekends and for people like families to use it to go to the mall, shop, and then to go to the theater? Or it's probably pretty hard to set it up to actually go to, say, City of London or London Life and actually do a route for true work hours? What's your goal of target market?
In the beginning, I would say yes, it's very difficult because of the limited budget that we have to create a system that accommodates people going to work, because we only have service twice a day. I think the main goal was just to have another option for people to use in the beginning. So whether that's going to appointments, whether that's people maybe with families with just one car that need additional transportation options, or people who don't drive, elderly people going shopping or things like that. So I think in the beginning it's more casual, and we're hoping to build on that. Already with the ridership stats that we've seen, we have some regular passengers that are using it daily, Monday to Friday. So that's pretty optimistic. And I know that one of the biggest source of sort of passengers that we have is Sarnia. We're speaking with Lambton College currently. There's a lot of co-op opportunities around Grand Bend and surrounding areas. So we've made that schedule sort of work really well. It leaves at 7:30 in the morning, so those students can get to their co-ops. And we're sort of starting with that and then seeing how that goes and how we can improve the London route as well.
It's going to be hard, obviously, as you know, with the restrictions, ideally staying within your health unit for travel, for any comparables, even in the, after as months go on even. So yeah, no. All right, no, very good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, any other comments? Marina, I'm glad that you brought up Lambton College, because, and I know that this is a separate route than the one that we've got in Middlesex that we're piloting. And then of course and then Strathroy of course has their own separate one. So Middlesex has got the 2 routes going on. But I know that was one target market that we were really trying to hit was that Fanshawe College demographic. And I know it's worked out quite well with connecting with Oxford, and then Dorchester and Thorndale been able to bring students in. So that's good. And I'm sorry, and does the London bus, does it stop at Masonville?
Yes, we're trying to get an agreement in place before the launch. Currently, we're sharing a London Transit stop on Fanshawe Road, and our lawyers have come back with some amendments to the agreement with Masonville. So we're actually hoping to get a stop set up within Masonville, but London Transit is at capacity right now, so we've been unable to use their terminal.
Yeah. I know it, and it's great if you can get in, well, even just in that area, because with the hub there, then they can go anywhere in the city. So that's good. Are there bike racks on the bus?
Currently there are not, but we are looking into those options in the springtime.
And then again, your discussions, because I think the key to this, because of course everybody's in the same boat, they've got the same grant that they've been able to start these micro transit systems, and the grant it's all done in 2023. So, I mean, I'm glad that the conversations through SCT, that you're talking to each other, because that's, I think, how this thing is going to really see success is, you know, because you're hitting two communities in Middlesex County, in North Mid and then in Lucan Biddulph. So then how can, you know, the Middlesex route, how can it connect? You know, the Strathroy route, how can it connect? So I'm pleased with that, because I think if you can get together as a group, then you can lobby the province for more money to help continue this. So I'm glad to hear that. And I did have a question and another question, and I've lost it. Oh, well, must not have been that important. No, I think this is great. And we'll certainly look for updates. And I know that any social media help Lisa can help promote, we can certainly do on our end. And I guess maybe just from time to time, you know, a report card back as to your ridership and that sort of thing.
Sure, that sounds good. How often would you like an update?
I mean, I don't know how long you're reporting back to Lambton Shores, but, you know, I don't know, twice a year, or as you see fit, maybe as you see fit. I was going to say to Councillor Masterakis, when you want to look at a microtransit system, the one in Norfolk actually is probably the one that's been going on the longest. And it's had the most changes, and it's really, as Marina said, it got seed money, and it's kept going. So if you want to look at a route, that's the one that's been around the longest. So, and you can see how it connects to everybody. Councillor Regan, follow up?
Yeah, follow up. I was just wondering, thinking about the opportunities we might have to advertise for people in London to come and take that bus to come shop in Lucan.
Yeah.
Thought that might be interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, well, if there's no other questions or comments, it was great meeting you. Thank you very much, Marina, for the presentation, and we look forward to working with you and hearing from you with further follow-ups.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Okay, minutes. Okay, so we've got the minutes from January 5th in front of us, and if there wasn't anything that needed to be corrected or added, could I get a motion then, mover and a seconder, to receive those motions as to receive those minutes as circulated? Deputy Mayor Manders, and a seconder, Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. Business arising is all ongoing. The Lucan OPP station, we do have a presentation scheduled to be made with Sylvia Jones at the upcoming Roma conference. So we'll report back on that. And then I believe the governance training Ron is going to speak to in his report. Is there anything that council wanted added to business arising, or anybody had any questions on any of the outstanding items? Okay, moving on to correspondence. There has been one item that has been pulled for our attention, and that is the email or the letter that was received, went to all heads of council with regards to the census that will be beginning in May of this year. And they're looking for a council resolution, and I believe there's one in our package, but I didn't know if anybody had any questions or anything on that. Any discussion points? The letter's pretty self-explanatory. The resolution just helps with letting our residents know that this is actually happening and encouraging involvement. Okay. Were there any other communications received that council wanted to speak to? There is the letter in there about OGRA, which is happening at the end of the month. And I think the motion is received for Councillor Westman and Jeff to attend, but if anybody else wants to attend that, we can tag you on that that motion later on. Okay, if there's nothing that council wants to speak to, if I could get a mover and seconder to accept the correspondence for information, please. Councillor Mastarakis and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that's accepted. Thank you very much. Committee reports, CDC, Lisa.
So no update yet. We'll have a meeting mid-February.
February. Okay. Blue Water, Deputy Mayor, I think you've got a meeting upcoming this week.
Yeah, Thursday.
Okay. Lake Huron, actually, we've got things happening with Lake Huron. We have the initial inaugural meeting for the discussions on the governance model, and then they're also starting their conversations with regards to, or their meetings with regards to strategic plan. So Jeff and I are involved with them tomorrow afternoon, and then I'm also with them on Friday for strategic plan. Fire boards, nothing. ABCA and Upper Thames, Councillor Westman.
Okay, yeah, so we have our Asabo Bayfield meeting on Thursday, and next week on the 26th, we have our Upper Thames River. We did hold a special meeting this week because of an announcement. For the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, General Manager Ian Wilcox has announced his retirement. So we had to do kind of a meeting to discuss the process for hiring his replacement. So Ian has served for a lot of years and been an amazing general manager and has done great things to bring the Upper Thames Valley through a lot of crisis and a lot of growth and change. So we're going to miss him a lot. He's a really resourceful guy, but he has agreed to stay on and help out the new hire and getting oriented before he leaves. So that was pretty nice to know. So anyhow, I'll have a better report next meeting.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Westman, and make sure you pass along our congratulations to Ian on his retirement. I know that Ron's worked with him for a number of years, but it's well deserved. Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. We had a review of our Parks and Rec master plan internally. I had hoped to have it to council this week, but it was a lot of information for the committee to take in. So I've given it back to them to review over in case they have additional comments that they would like to add before I submit it to council, as well as the position has been posted for the vacancy on the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and it's due to close on the 28th.
On the 28th? Okay.
The 28th, yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Moving on, or I guess I should ask, are there any questions with regards to any of this? Okay. Staff reports, Ron.
There we go. Okay, now I'm unmuted. So now I got to go back to my notes. So with regards to the COVID-19 update, there's no real change to our operations. Obviously, we're trying to keep our skeleton staff in the office. There will always be somebody in the municipal office. Masks are optional when you're alone in your own office. However, if somebody else does come into the office, masks must be worn by both parties. The Verhoog LPAD appeal, there is a case management conference date set for Friday, February 26, 2021 at 10 a.m. And the township has retained Annalie Baruti as our solicitor. And the members of council may recall that she was the same lawyer we used in our last appeal. I sent out an email earlier today with regards to the county roundtable. The Zoom invite was sent out this morning, I believe, from Bill Rayburn, and I forwarded that on to the rest of the members of council. So please, if you didn't receive that or didn't get it, please let me know. Number 4, the second apartment building is under construction behind the municipal office, and they ran into a bit of an issue as far as parking for the existing tenants of building number 1 goes. So I had some discussions with Amir, the building owner. And what we came up with, they needed parking for 10 tenants. So 5 of the tenants are going to be temporarily using the medical clinic parking lot. And they asked if we could give up 5 spots in our parking lot between the library and the municipal office. So we've made arrangements for those 5 spots will be sort of against the roadway, the furthest away from the entrance to the library. So there's only 5 spots. I believe it's D Works or M Works that looks after the snow removal in the parking lot for the medical building. They will also be looking after the snow removal for those 5 spots. And obviously with lockdown, that shouldn't be an issue at all. So we are obviously trying to make accommodations to help out a little bit. And it appears that those accommodations will be needed until the end of April. Number 5, we'll be looking to set up fire board meeting dates the 2nd or 3rd week of February. I've been in touch with both chiefs, and certainly Catherine has been working with both chiefs for their 2021 budgets. And number 6, we are looking at January 28th or 29th, which is next, I believe it's next Thursday or Friday, for governance training with Nigel Bellchamber. So we're hoping to get the members of council either one of those 2 days from 9 a.m. till noon. We chose the morning to hopefully be able to include Councillor Westman. So I'm hoping that that's going to work. If people could look at their calendars and maybe let Tina know which of those 2 dates can work for them, I'd appreciate that. And then we had some questions after Cindy McNair's presentation at the last meeting. So I'm just going to go through them. I kind of put them on a piece of paper here with Tina. So the first question was, what if an employee wants to submit a complaint but wishes to remain anonymous for valid reasons? How do we facilitate that in our municipality? And we don't facilitate that. We do not accept anonymous complaints. The second question was with regard to the training for committee members and volunteers. And so I had a discussion with Cindy about that, and training, quote, training can take different forms. So she said it can, for volunteers and committee members, you don't want to overwhelm them. They are unpaid positions. So what is a valid method to train them is to simply email them the policy, ask them to review the policy, and then acknowledge that they've received and reviewed the policy. The next question was, do we have a joint health and safety committee in structure and composition as required by the Occupational Health and Safety Act? No, we do not, as we are not required. You need 20 employees before you need a formal health and safety committee. Is there a separate presentation that provided for supervisors and managers? See notes below, and there was a bunch of notes from the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And our policy sets out the process that's to be followed. That policy was developed by the consultant and vetted by our lawyer. There was one talked about workplace restoration, and that was a term that neither Cindy nor I had ever heard of before. So I don't know how that is to answer that one. With regards to the penalties, penalties aren't there, but I think I remember it. The Section 66 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act sets out the penalties. They are for individuals, I believe it's up to 100,000 and 12 months in jail. And for corporations, it's up to 1.5 million is the penalty clause. So those were the questions. With regard to the anonymous complaint, I know we talked, or one member of council had mentioned the whistleblower policy or something like that. If council wants to entertain something like that, the way to do that is to basically introduce it to council and make a motion and get the support of council, and then staff can be instructed to pursue that. At this point in time, I'm not aware of any whistleblower policies within Middlesex County. But again, that's a council decision to make. I think there's, and I believe the reason we don't have that is there's enough other avenues for people to pursue that that's not required. But again, that's a council decision at the end of the day.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions for Ron on that? Councillor Regan.
Sorry, if I missed it. Sorry, Ron. Madam Mayor, if I can ask Ron, when you talk about the penalties, I wasn't sure what was the penalty, what was the payments for the?
Those are penalties under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So
For,
I think
sorry,
for any severe penalty, I would suggest. I'm not aware of anybody receiving 12 months in jail or $100,000 fine, but it is in the legislation.
okay, no, I just meant, I'm sorry, I didn't ask the question right. Just the penalty is for what did they do or didn't do? I just missed that, sorry.
Well, that's for any violation under
Okay,
the
all right,
Occupational.
okay. Sorry, okay, now I got it. Okay, sorry, it's me, it's not you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, Ron.
That's okay.
Any other questions or comments for Ron on his report? What were the dates that you were looking at again for governance training? I missed those 2 dates, January 28th and 9th?
Yes, 28th and 29th.
Or
So
9th.
next
28th or 9th, right?
correct. Yes, next Thursday or Friday.
But it's just one session, 9 to 12.
It's just one session, so it's either a Thursday or Friday is available. So if every member of council could sort of email Tina with which one is preferred,
Sure.
please. Thank you.
Maybe since Ron did mention the Middlesex Roundtable on Thursday, I'll just kind of expand on that now before I forget when it comes to later. So it's Thursday evening, 7 o'clock. You've got the link, and it's going to be the same sort of format as the one that we held in the spring with who do we have then? We had Steve Clark, we had Monty, we had Jeff and Ernie Hardman, and some the outgoing CAO of FCM. This one, actually, Monty and Jeff are joining us, as well as Minister Christine Elliott. She's going to be joining us, which I think will be a great opportunity to have some discussion with her, not just about the pandemic and COVID. We're hoping to have a more broader discussion with her. And as of this afternoon, the Premier was going to be providing some introductory words. So he's not able to join us live, but he certainly knows that what we're doing on Thursday night. So it would be great if you could join us. I think it'll be a good 2 hours for sure. Looking forward to it. Okay, moving on then from Ron's reports, Tina. You're in the bottom corner.
Good evening, guys. Just have a couple of reports included tonight. The first one is just kind of something new I thought I'd bring forward, seeing that other municipalities do something like this either annually or biannually. Given our size, I think annually is sufficient enough to provide some of this information, but just a quick overview of what's going on in the clerk's department. Our efforts continue with records management and digitizing things. Maggie has taken on helping out with the Laserfiche rule, and we're going to be starting back with our working group with the other county clerks in the next couple of weeks, and hoping she can join in on that and we can kind of keep moving along with that, because it is a daunting task, but we are making a bit of progress. The next is just a little update on planning and kind of a summary of the number of applications we've had over the past 3 years. As you can see, and you're already aware, 2020 was a busy year. We'll see if 2021 shapes up to be just as busy. With regarding the planning, Dan and Ron and Kathy and I have had discussions about kind of directing planning items to be contained on the second agenda of the month. So just kind of brings all of our planning items together instead of overwhelming each meeting with planning in both meetings. That would also kind of bring staff reports to generally the first meeting of the month, and then planning items to the second meeting of the month. Again, if there are minor or small planning issues that are kind of rushed to be brought forward, we can accommodate those as necessary, but we're going to try that out for this year and see if that works out. If it doesn't, we'll go back to the other way. The next item was just regarding licensing and vital statistics and signatures that we provide. Again, it's just an overview of the numbers that we've provided over the past 3 years. You'll notice lottery licenses was down last year, and we'll say that COVID had an effect on that. Marriage licenses were up, and that's due mostly in part as we were one of the only municipalities in the area offering marriage licensing services this summer. So we did see an increase and see people come from other areas. Vital statistics and commissioner signatures, those always vary, but are fairly regular. Municipal enforcement, that I just thought I'd provide some information regarding the parking. The parking administration is actually taken care of by both Maggie and Julie, so the administrative office and the public works office. So those are just the numbers of tickets that we've collected over the past few years, and of those counts which were not collected and had to be sent on to Provincial Offences Office for collection. The next is just regarding our animal control and the kind of numbers that we see over the past few years. It is on a case-by-case basis with our contract with Animal Care Center. So when dogs are picked up, most of the fees are recouped to the owner. Unless the dogs are adopted out, then the municipality will incur some charges. Policy development, we continue to work in that area. As you're aware, we did knock quite a few off in 2020, and we probably will be meeting with our working group again this year to work towards some new ones. But the exciting part is that we are working towards a shared service initiative with the county and their HR department, which can maybe help out in that area. So again, that was just for information, just kind of giving everybody an idea of some of the numbers and services that we're providing. Did anybody have any questions regarding that?
Deputy Mayor.
I am a little concerned on the planning, but I obviously will just see how it plays out and can adjust. Just again, with it being obviously a revenue item eventually for us, typically planning and a very much expense for the applicant, and delaying that, and what the first considered good excusable excuse is for not landing on the date as our staff is now requesting will be interesting for a change in what our staff deems acceptable. So anyways, I am concerned about that. I just wanted to comment. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I think that with regards to that planning, you know, I mean, every municipality can decide how they're doing their service, but that is how many municipalities deal with their planning. It's on one meeting a month. So it would be in keeping with what our neighbors are doing. I thought the marriage licenses were interesting. I thought you were going to tell me it's because so many of our residents found love during COVID. I thought being at home, you know, pandemic.
I can't say that was the reason.
Anyways, thank you for this report, Tina. I think that's a great report, and it's a good summary, and I think it certainly keeps us aware of, you know, what's happening in the office on an annual basis. So thanks very much for adding that.
No problem. So report number 2 just has to do with digital signatures. Obviously, that's something with going virtual meetings and COVID that there is more of a need for. And we do have an electronic signature policy in place, but I did have a further look at it and then also discussed with some of our other municipalities to see how they're proceeding. My suggestion is just to do a slight amendment to it, just to kind of more clarify what electronic signatures are defined as and accepted. And by having that in place, the plan is, or the recommendation is, to use electronic signatures for our Planning Act decisions going forward, so you guys won't have to attend into the office. Our minutes also, as you're aware, do note the motions carried when it comes to Planning Act decisions. So it's not just that decision that's the formal record. The minutes also have that record of decision. There are some programs out there, obviously, that do provide for electronic signatures like DocuSign or Notarius, sorry. But there's quite a fee associated with those, and they kind of work on, I know with DocuSign, like a package type basis. So a minimum of 500 signatures, for instance, would be your starting package. And we don't have anywhere near that amount of electronic signatures needed at this time. So I would recommend that, I would suggest that we just continue what we're doing now, and with the Planning Act decisions, we'll use electronic signatures to carry those forward. Any questions from anyone?
Any comments on that? Okay, great. Anything else, Tina?
That's everything.
Okay, thank you. Finance, Catherine.
I just want to mention that we're going to have some budget team meetings this week, and the draft budget was sent out to all of council yesterday. So for everyone to look at and provide their input. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for Catherine at this time? Public Works, Jeff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. My first report is one I touched on last council meeting. It's the Perth South Boundary Road Agreement. There's a section on the, as it states in the report, there's a section on the Wayland line that is still a common boundary between South Perth and Lucan Biddulph that we share. In past history, South Perth Perth South has maintained this physically, did the work. In the past, we've looked after another section of road, and we were able to trade off costs associated that way. Having uploaded a portion of the Wayland line to the County of Middlesex, we no longer can trade those costs off. We'll have to have a separate boundary agreement with Perth South now in place. So as the attached boundary agreement shows, it lays out responsibilities. It lays out basically what's responsible for maintenance and that sort of thing. We looked over insurance. We both use Frank Cowan Insurance and that sort of thing. It also lays out a way to compensate, to bring compensation forward. I think it was through the past little while, we've had a little bit of a negotiation, and the example is included in the boundary agreement so that everybody's aware upfront how we arrive at compensation for the maintenance side of looking after this section of road. So other than that, it's fairly straightforward. The cost to the township will be, and this is just an estimate because it'll be reviewed each year, but it'll be roughly about $12,700 for this section of road for the township's portion. And again, this section or this amount of money or expense will be offset in what we don't have to cover for our other sections on the Wayland line. So there will be a trade-off in the budget process, and when we go through the budget, we'll be able to point out where we're saving. And I think I mentioned it in the report that obviously our sand usage, salt sand usage, our wages, and our fuel will be three of the direct amounts in our budget that will go down to offset this cost. So other than that, I'll set it there, and I'll open it to questions about this.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Any questions on this? I know when you touched on it at the last meeting, we did end up having a pretty fulsome discussion on it, but was there any further comment in reflection of that? Okay.
Perfect. Okay, I'll move to the second one. The second one is our water rates. And I shouldn't call it water rates. It's actually water rates and wastewater rates, but we always use the water as our guide in our billing and our utilities. So it tends to be called the water rates portion of it. So basically, I know we talked a little bit about this when we set the financial plan for the water system. We looked at keeping up with an inflationary and making sure that our systems were funded and that we didn't fall behind. We also accounted for that. We knew that there was going to be some growth in the systems. So at that time, when we reviewed the expenses, we brought forward that it was reasonable to look at a 2% increase. And that is based on inflation, so that if inflation was showing that it was going the other way or going above 2, then I would bring stuff forward and we'd talk about it. But through Catherine's help with, we looked at what we spent in 2020, and we looked at some items that are going to be, for 2021, and what sort of increases we saw on expenses. And we believe that 2% certainly is not, out of range. We're actually, when we go through the budget process, you'll see the water plan that we actually are running a bit of a deficit at 2%. So, but we'll get into those numbers when we do the budget side of things. So, what it amounts to the people and the people using the system. So we always talk about 15 cubic meters a month being sort of the average. There's certainly households that use less than 15, and there's certainly households that use more than 15. And if you look at the overall bill for a 3-month period, if you added in the 2% increase, it would look just under $6 on that bill. So $5.98. And that breaks out to $2.48 for water and $3.50 for wastewater. So that's what we're talking about at this point. When we go through the budget process, so tonight, this report is not about approving the 2%. This is a report that brings that forward so we can start the process, because we have to give public notice. And then we'll have to allow the public to comment on this. So what I'm bringing forward this report on is that to get council to recommend staff proceed with a public notice for discussion of a possible water and wastewater rate increase. So lots more information will come through on this, but we need to start that process now if we want to, if we do want to bring forward the 2% percentage. I listed at the very bottom in my recommendation on March the 16th, public meeting in discussions with Catherine. And if the budget process actually goes forward without any real problems, we might be able to push that up sooner than later. And that way then, if we did increase this, then we'd have it ready for the end of the month in March for looking at the next that's when the next bills go out for the water side of things. So other than that, that's about it. I'll open it for discussion. I think we've talked a bit about this when we talked about the water financial plan, but I'll open it back to you guys.
Great. Thank you for that, Jeff. Councillor Regan, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, I just have 2 questions. One, the $5.98 a month, that's just average. So that's just an average amount, right?
That's an average amount.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you recall, and not putting you on the spot, sorry, do you recall what the increase was last year?
It was also through the mayor. It was also 2%.
It was also 2%, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry. No, I'm jumping the gun there. It was actually 4. But it was based on, we didn't do anything in 2019. We had no rate increase then, so we used a 4% and based it on 2% a year to cover inflation. Sorry for that.
All right, no, that's okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jeff.
Any other further questions or comments for Jeff? And just a reminder, this is just on the public meeting aspect of it going forward. do we have to give a certain amount of notice for the public meeting? And then once the public meeting is held, is there an appeal process?
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, Tina was able to give us a little information that we do have to have a period of 21 days for public notice. There is it actually in the Municipal Act, I believe. So that's laid out. As an appeal process, I believe, I'm not sure about that. I would have to double check that through the Municipal Act. I believe that we were able to, no, I better not say anything. I better double check on that one if there's an appeal process after. Yeah.
So if we've still got lots of time, if it's just 21 days, if you find things go well this week with budget and you want to move that meeting up into February, we've still got some time to play with, right?
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of an update. I'll start off first because I was going to double check on the sidewalk, Madam Mayor, and on Saintsbury, there was a question about that. And I just wanted to make sure, and I did double check. There is supposed to be a sidewalk go in from Wellington to the corner on the west side of the road. So that is correct, what we talked about last week. A couple of things. We did have a meeting with BM Ross. We got an update on the master servicing study. It is going along as predicted. They're basically closing things up. There was a little bit of information to change hands, but they're in the final stages. We're going to have another meeting on February 18th. And that one's going to be a more definite information. We'll be able to bring something back at when the report's going to come back to council on that, or the study will come back to council on that. So that was encouraging. It was a good meeting. The other thing I wanted to bring up was Thursday we closed tenders on Frank Street. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be interesting to see the numbers. There's a lot of municipalities. We're all looking to see what COVID and what the effects of COVID had on the construction industry. One of the hiccups that did arrive last week was in January, the Ontario government brought in a new regulation. We're not allowed to truck fill out of construction sites anymore unless it's tested. So we have to create a dump site nearby, and if there's any material, we have to store it on site, have it tested by a lab before it can be actually removed from the construction site. So adds a little more wrinkle to everything. The idea, if you go into the regulation, the idea is they're trying to promote more green by I don't want to call it forcing, but encouraging construction companies to use material on site rather than trucking it and bringing in other materials. So they're trying to get people to recycle the material on site more. So that was an interesting. It caught us a little bit by surprise that the regulation jumped in there. A couple of things that have been happening in the community that aren't great. We had skaters on the lagoons out, and they've cut the fence, and we had to replace the fence, and we put up extra signs, and we've actually called the police at one point, and the reason why it's too dangerous to be on the lagoons. We have a pump that can pump sewage in there, and the ice is not predictable when you do that. So very worrying. Renee at RACO was very upset when she came across it. So we're going to do some more posting. We're talking about doing some more signage there, but I don't know what else we can do. The fence got cut, and it's not only vandalism, but it's dangerous, because if they ever did fall through, it'd be tough to get people out back there. So that was an interesting one. The other thing, we're having a little bit interesting time right now because the ground is full of water and there's not a lot of frost in it. We're getting a lot of sub pumps and a lot of lawns leaking water onto the sidewalks. So I had a meeting with staff, and we're going to do some extra extra work trying to keep ahead of this, because what happens is you might not even have a snowy day. You might just have a normal day where the roads and everything's fine, and the water leaks out out of the lawn and onto the sidewalk, and we get ice patches, and we've had a couple of areas where the ice is built up thick. So we're attempting to try and keep ahead of that. So it was an interesting thing that's happened in the last about week and a half. We've seen a real increase of those icy patches on the sidewalks, and so we're going to do staff. We had a little meeting with staff, and we're going to go out and do a little extra around those patches. Let's see, what else do I got? I think that's about it. The last little bit of information I just wanted to bring up to council, and this is Madam Mayor, I'll open it up to council what their thoughts are. But we talked about bringing Matt Pearson from BM Ross in, and to do a special presentation to council. I don't want presentation or a special review of the expansion at the Lucan wastewater treatment plant, because I think everybody would probably have a few questions and would like to see where we're sitting and how that process could unfold over the next little while. So we talked about trying to do it at a council, but at the same time we thought we didn't want to rush it, and we want to make sure everybody was comfortable in this discussion. And so we were looking at January 27th, basically similar to a council meeting, maybe at 6:30. But I would look at, input from people if that would be agreeable. Maybe, I just think it's a great, this is going to be a huge deal to the municipality, and I think it's time to open that discussion and start talking about what's the next step. So I'll leave it there and look for some input on that.
Hey, lots there to consider. So maybe we'll start on the BM Ross presentation or council chat for January 27th. Maybe like the governance discussion, maybe you can send an email after the meeting, take a good look at your calendar and send an email to Jeff on that. But I certainly think it's a good thing that we should have that presentation, and I think the sooner we have that, the better. It is a big project, and I think that the more information that council can digest, and of course it would be public, so our residents could watch the meeting, they could learn more about the project and where we're at. But that's just my 2 cents. Any other comments from council is appreciated.
Definitely.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, no, if Jeff even just sends it out an email to us or a meeting invite or something, as opposed to us to him. I don't know if we need a consensus, as long as 3 of us, if that is needed to have this, then I would say once he has confirmation of 3 that we get it set up. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't have a set up of 3, we relook at dates. Yeah. But
I know, and to that point, if we can get 3 members of council, again, it would be treated like a meeting like this, where it would be recorded. So if there was a councillor that couldn't attend, they could certainly watch back at their convenience as well.
Okay. Yeah.
For information.
Yeah, okay. I can do that.
Okay. Were there any other questions or comments for Jeff on what he has reported to us? Councillor Masterakis.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, on that the construction fill, I was at an OGRA conference a couple of years ago, and they were talking about this and this new law around the fill and the dirt, and they were actually talking about if you're at some point, if you're doing work in a municipality and you're down one side road and you're moving dirt out of the ditch, you may not be able to take it to another road, 2 concessions over and use it without being tested, is my understanding. Does that come through, unless it's part of the same project?
And Madam Mayor, I think there always was a bit of I shouldn't say a bit, there is always a rule where transferring of materials from site to site, you have to be very careful, particularly when it comes down to the drainage or conservation area. So It's one thing to top up a ditch or fill a road or bait, because we bring gravel in and we fix roads. That's one thing. But when you start hauling in, 200 loads of dirt to fill in a ravine or a low spot, the Conservation Authority has always had the ability to say, no, we want the soils tested, so there's no contamination getting in there. I think where this regulation now starts in is that not a single load can leave the construction site, no matter what, whether it goes to a depot, back to a gravel pit or back to somewhere else, until there's a test on it. And that to me is starting, that's the difference there, is the volume or the scrutiny of it all, is that, and you have to do multiple tests on your soils as they leave. So you're right, and there always was some legislation in transporting of materials, but this is tightening it right up, and a lot of it has to do more with urban. Say if you're working in the city of London or you're working in downtown Toronto, you don't know what you're working with in some of the old road bases. And so they're really trying to tighten all this stuff up. So, and it's a green, and they're promoting it as green, right? They're trying to get less dump truck loads going and less dump truck loads coming. So yeah, it's an interesting piece of legislation.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Jeff? Okay. Just on the lagoon, the skating, I know that a newsletter went out with another reminder about the swim ponds and everything. So hopefully our residents take heed of that and understand the danger surrounding it. It was interesting. I don't know. One of the local newspapers last week had a picture on their social media of some kids playing ice hockey on one of the swim ponds in London. It was a beautiful picture. I mean, it was so much fun. The kids were playing hockey. It was great. And then it was funny because it was quickly taken down when the city then started issuing notices about don't skate on the swim pond. So, I mean, it's an issue for all municipalities, but it is so important for residents to keep their kids off that ice. You just don't know how that water is moving underneath. So it's unfortunate that that was happening at the lagoons. Okay, moving on to Parks and Recreation. Paul.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. And yes, just to echo that, yes, we also had some people skating on our storm retention ponds as well. And Jeff and myself have been looking at signage to make sure that's properly addressed, because, as an ice maker, it's important to understand that even though that it seems thick out there, it's not a lake. That water level underneath is rising and lowering, and salt from the road is coming in there, ruining the ice integrity. Just as if you're at the arena and people drag salt out there, ruins the integrity and the safety of the ice. So absolutely, I hope our residents heed the warnings that went out in the newsletter. And to echo that as well, one of the things that was brought up at the last council meeting about road safety with pedestrians walking. One of the things Abby and myself have been looking at is making sure that, while people aren't using our facilities, if we could try to post some safety reminders. So we've posted some safety reminders to walking and exercising on the roadways as well. We're going to try and keep, as, the winter weather continues on and there's more things going on, people playing outside, not using our facilities, if we can provide them any dialogue towards safety that they could use when they're out there, that's a service we can provide to them. Other than that, I do not have any major reports for council this evening. Simply, we're just monitoring what's going on in the surrounding municipalities in the county. We're still meeting once a week to make sure we're all on the same page and communicating and monitoring the situation with COVID-19 and what we're able to offer through Parks and Recreation.
Any questions for Paul? Comments from Paul at this time? Councillor Regan.
I was just, if it's appropriate to bring up at this time, I did email to everyone and to about a couple of concerns I had from a couple of parents with children in hockey. So there's about 350 families affected, and I'm wondering, and I'm just asking, and I'm bringing it up with respect to the ice that we have in, and I know that the hockey season has been sort of suspended due to the restrictions. And I was just wondering, actually, at this time, because we're not sure where things are going to be, but some people were just sort of asking, and I'm bringing it forward about, can we keep the ice in? I know some lower tier municipalities have taken the ice out, but I'm just wondering at some point, and I know there's a price incurred for that because I was asking about sort of what it would cost to run on a daily basis, what it costs to keep the ice in. But I'm just wondering if these types of things, this type of thing could be considered under COVID expenses. I mean, the health, well-being of residents, getting the kids out and playing hockey. I mean, there's not a whole lot for people to do, but I'm just wondering if we left it in, is it possible to leave it in? Can we recover those costs? I mean, even if we stretch it off, and I'm just going, for the fences here, we keep it into mid-April or something, in case these restrictions are lifted, and some of our residents can get out on the ice. So I don't know if it's Paul, if I should talk to, or Catherine, or
Paul, do you want to take that?
If I may first, Madam Mayor. So yes, so knowing that some of this conversation might happen, I've been doing some math, and so roughly, just for an estimate for you, per day on a normal, like if we go back to say November, where normal operation is around $237.03 a day. Currently, with the operations doing the mitigation we have, we're running at about 108.07 cents a day, which equates to about a difference between $6,873.92 a month to $3,134.18 a month. So we have been doing some mitigation energy-wise that reduces our cost right now to almost half. There's other savings to be made there. There's no part-time labor in right now. There's no water being used on the ice for flooding. There's no fuel being expended for the machine. So there is some savings right now. I do know that the OMHA is meeting tonight for our Region 1B to discuss kind of going forward what their plans are. The news today, I know from Ontario, of the lifting of lockdown not being until we're under 1,000 cases a day, does not bode well for how it's been going and how soon the lockdown will be lifted. That being said, there is some internal conversation with the association about how, past the month of March, the families, the survey, it's due back tomorrow. It's been very consistent with, they are eager to do something, even if it is in red, not scrimmages, but they are not, internal conversations are not very in favor of going past March, as they don't want to interfere with other sports. They don't feel that's fair. They had an opportunity to do their thing, as well as, and if we're still in red, they don't want to be doing the same thing, just practicing skating on the ice for months and months and months again. So, those things are all to be considered. So I would say that the OMHA meeting tonight is going to be significant, as well as our executive is meeting in a week to discuss this conversation. And I would fully advise council, if I were to hear from minor hockey that it's not coming back, or it's not doing, they don't have the commitment, I would fully advise council that we should remove our ice to mitigate that loss. Absolutely.
Yeah, follow up.
Again, I'm just sorry. So I just wanted to know, is that something that we can, if let's say we did do that and we did keep it open and we weren't using it, is that something that we could collect under COVID expenses? I guess Catherine.
Be a Catherine question.
Catherine, please. Thank you.
Well, that money that we received is supposed to be used for operating pressures. So if this is something that can be defined that way, then certainly use that funding if there's any funding left there to be had. But we'll also take note of it in case they come up with anything new for 2021, or if there's additional funds that you can apply for like they did last fall. So definitely something we can take note of.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So I
Thanks,
guess
Beth.
the answer to that is there's more to come. The ice isn't coming out tomorrow, but we'll keep monitoring it. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, no, I'm not in favor of keeping the ice in if we find out these things that like Paul said he's going to find out about Lucan minor hockey and OMHA as you find out those things, because I think Daniel, Councilor Regan, will find out that if we get the ice out and things open up, then at least we can be using that pad for the kids for if we have not a very nice spring, at least be using it for soccer and baseball practice, ball hockey maybe, and put as opposed to having that expense to hope we can use it to take it out, as opposed to taking it out and actually putting it to use right away when we can for a lot of different other exercises, I'm more in favor of. So.
Were there any other follow-up questions or comments for Paul? Councillor Mastarakis.
Just a comment about the ponds and so forth. Our good resident, Mr. Ray, was actually riding his bicycle around and actually warning people if they're going to be going on the ice. He was telling them, actually, there's an empty lot beside me that kids have been using to skate because it's only a foot deep and it's safe. So he was directing people in the community where to go to be safe and skating. So thank you, Mr. Ray.
Exactly. He always is looking out for everyone, that's for sure, that one. Okay, moving on, economic development, Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So bringing forth the red application for the grants back tonight again to council's meeting. Paul and I discussed it at Parks and Rec. The theory and the idea of doing something for Market Street Park and starting to revitalize it was very much a positive response from the committee and I think everyone was on board with that whole idea of let's start thinking about the park in that way. And so, like I said, we brought it back, had good support from them to get some ideas out there and apply for a grant to see what we can get through the program for this thing. So bring it back forward to council again for discussion, hopefully approval, and I could work on the grant application and word it appropriately so that it's similar to previous grants that they've approved in parks to revitalize and increase tourism, visitors, special events, which is in line with a couple of our strategic plans from the township to kind of start doing those sort of things as well. So.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Questions for Lisa on that? Councillor Mastarakis.
Hi, Lisa. Yeah, I was at that Parks and Rec, and then I did a follow-up to see what the RED program was. And we're talking about a band shell, and my understanding was they don't, the RED program doesn't support capital projects. If we did a band shell, we would have to pay for it, or whatever group. But then if we wanted to put sound system or lighting systems on, those could qualify for up to 30% coverage. So, and I guess there's and you could have actually multiple projects go in at the same time. So it got me thinking about nice things for next time, but you could have multiple projects going in at the same time. So how to, and also if it's quality of life, they're telling me quality of life projects are great. If they're solely for the neighborhood though, they used to fund those years ago. They wanted basically, how are we going to generate revenue from adding this? What's the economic benefit? Mm-hmm. So if you're doing just, hey, this is good for the neighborhood, the economic benefit today is our community, lots of communities are getting lots of homes coming up. The growth is there. So if this band shell and music was, hey, we've got 30,000 people coming to Bacon Fest. If we put this over at Market Street Park, we can bring in another 5,000 people at $70 a head. Especially with the current government, my understanding is that it's really focused on what's the return on what's going in here. It's not capital, it's more the other parts of that. Did I understand that correct?
Yeah, and I think that's the whole process of writing up the grant. Last year, or last intake, Gananoque actually applied to, I think how they put it is redevelop their town park. And that was basically taking it, their wording was taking it from a seasonal park to a all year round park. And so that was taking an actual part of the park and making it a year-round thing to include, so they could have year-round events. So I think that will be part of the application.
Yeah.
And then it would be, so they did it for cultural and tourism attraction to attract new events and visitors to the community. That would be part of one section of the grant application. The other one would be, yes, it would bring in visitors, some economic thing, would tie in Bacon Fest. Hopefully that continues on, because that park is super busy. We always have young acts and different entertainments in that park, but we have no ability to house them. We rent a tent, we had rent generators. So this would facilitate that ability to have those sort of increased events in Market Street Park for Bacon Fest. I think it's a multi-faceted things where you kind of bring in a bunch of these points that we try and see what they say from that. They do capital things, and it's all in how you word it, I guess, is the reality of grant writing. It's kind of how you want to spin it. So we'll see, but my suggestion is maybe we do the grant application for the park. And then maybe we split out the whole lights and downtown beautification as another application, so that one's not dependent on the other, just in case. And so then if they say no, we don't see that as a viable option, doing some sort of thing like a band shell, then at least we have the other application in there, which more than likely they're pretty solid, those sort of grants when it comes to downtown and lights and those sort of things. They're pretty well guaranteed usually with the RED program. So that would be kind of my suggestion.
Oh, thank you. And one more follow-up. What got tonight with the new bus service and Daniel Regan's comments about bringing people to town. One of the we gave the museum $15,000 last year as a municipality. Is that something that we could? You may have done this. You've been doing this for years. You may have done this before. Can we not look at that in a way that it qualifies for a RED grant or something in the future at another application where it's done in a way, hey, yes, it's to bring tourism for the whole community, and you can get up to 50% back in certain situations, and depending what the items are, or 30%. So that was one thought about the museum.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great to include them in the next intake. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Lisa? Just on the topic of tourism grants, the county has, and I know you know the moniker, I can't remember what it is, but Lisa, but they've received a nice sizable grant to be used for tourism activities and facilities across the county to try and, pivot and change, and because of the constraints of COVID. And I know that Kara's been in touch with the museum as to how maybe they can work with that. So, okay, is that it then, Lise?
Yeah, I would just, when it comes down to motions, if we can just reword that a little bit, Tina, so that it's kind of 2 grant applications.
Okay. Yes, we've been quite successful the last couple of years with RED programs. So there was a period of time when they were hard to come by, but the last few years been successful. Okay, into council comments. Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I meant to bring this up at the end of Ron's report. Ron, the defending of the decision, you said there's a lawyer hired for the council decision there on that property. What is that? If they change the use of that property or their vision on it, how does that affect that? Like, are we protected anyway, or taxpayers from paying this and not doing what they say they're going to do?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to answer the Deputy Mayor's question, we had a discussion of all parties. Tina was in on that discussion as well with the lawyer and the applicant. Mr. Verhoeven and his wife were actually in attendance as well, along with Michelle Brock. So yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher because they kind of changed lanes and went with a townhouse proposal that would require a site plan approval from council. Site plan approval does not require public consultation. It's strictly with council. So that one was in process when we actually got the notice from LPAT advising of the case management meeting coming up. And then the applicant kind of seemed to change lanes, and now they want to fight it, whereas before they didn't want to fight it. So it's a bit of a flip-flop, but they definitely would rather see the apartment building as opposed to the townhouse development. So they are going to defend it. They are going to pay for the planner, and we will pay for the lawyer. So it's a 50-50 deal. So we're not paying both sides of the coin as we were on the last appeal. So that's a good thing. But yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher, and I did have a conversation with the lawyer. I like the fact that we're paying for the lawyer and not paying for the planner. I mean, I think that's an important part for us. So the discussion was whether that would, or your question was whether that would hinder the case going forward. And the answer was from the lawyer, I don't think so, but she was going to look into it. So she is going to look at obviously previous cases to see what can be done there. I think there's still some hope that maybe the applicant or the appellant, the person who appealed it, would become aware of the other townhouse proposal and maybe look at both proposals, the apartment building proposal and the townhouse proposal, and like if these are the two options, they would like the apartment building better for the neighbors, but that's a decision that the appellant has to make. We can't make that decision, and we have to go forward based on defending council's decision to allow the rezoning.
My question is, which it'll obviously play out if, again, spending the taxpayers' money to defend the council decision, and if the applicant doesn't proceed with that vision for the property, it'd be nice to be able to associate all costs, not just half the cost, back to that applicant if they change on us. Or I'll be bringing up in future council meetings to talk to Dan Fitzgerald how we protect ourselves, because we certainly aren't protecting ourselves very good if we're about to defend a decision that they don't proceed with. That'll be very disappointing for our community from an expense standpoint.
Yeah, no, understood. And I think we conveyed that to them too. Like, you can't, you got to pick one here. But I think from their standpoint, what they're thinking is that they don't want to go through this appeal and then have to potentially lose the appeal and then have to start over again with the townhouse proposal, because time is a bit of a factor there. So they kind of want to proceed to a point with the townhouses, and that would be their sort of plan B. If the apartment building gets struck down by LPAT, then they can just quickly slide in with the townhouse proposal before council.
Well, if it gets denied, understood. If it gets approved, if we defend the council's decision and it gets approved, I'll be very disappointed that we spend taxpayers' money on something. Then I will really want staff to work on how do we protect ourselves from wasting money like that. That'll come after the fact.
Yeah, we haven't got that much time involved in the site plan approval process yet for the townhouse. So obviously we're more invested in the apartment building.
I think what the deputy mayor is saying, Ron, is that if they go ahead with the appeal and they win the appeal for the apartment building, and then they end up building the townhouses, That's where's the protection for us, so that if they win the appeal, they have to build the apartment building. And is there something that we can either enter into an agreement with them that forces their hand, or that says if they win the appeal and they change their mind, then they have to take on the costs associated?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I can certainly ask that question of our lawyer and the planner. To see
Yes,
what
that is.
Is that what you were trying to say?
That's what I was trying to say.
Okay. I will find an answer.
Okay. Did you have any further follow-up, Deputy Mayor? Okay. Councillor Mastarakis.
Yeah, on Dave's point, so it's interesting it changed as we had an approval for another apartment building, plus there's one being built by the township office. So I'm wondering, maybe it's concerns over the ability to fill an apartment building that's changing their business plan as to going towards townhouses. So I agree with Mr. Manders, but the decision was made, let's build an apartment building. We've spent a lot of time and money through a lot of staff time and money. I support kind of, hey, sit or get off the pot type of thing on what you're doing, if I understand this correctly. So yeah, if we can ensure that we're covered in future, if somebody halfway through this decides they're not going to do the deal, then we should be able to recoup costs, staff, so forth, if we can.
Any other comments? And this can be either on what the Deputy Mayor brought up or any other councillor comments at this time. Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really two things really quick. I just wrote to council earlier, just asking, letting them know I'm just asking permission tonight to attend the Roma conference next week for 2 days. There's actually a number of classes I wanted to try to attend, but one for sure was the OPP, one on the OPP seminar, community relationships with the OPP. Second, if I may, Madam Mayor, just really quickly, just building on what Councillor Westman was talking about earlier, we're going into the 11th month of COVID and lockdown, and I'm just sort of asking people, and as the mayor did earlier in her opening comments, checking in on people, saying, asking people if they're okay, asking if, maybe some of the seniors you need to go shopping for. And I like the story about the, clearing out somebody's driveway and that sort of thing. We all got to stick together in Lucan Biddulph, and I just think, just check on each other and ask each other how you're doing. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Mastarakis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this may be brought up through that governance session. At a previous governance session, I attended 3 municipalities. The idea of an annual priority setting for council that leads off the strategies, their strategic plan. So we all sit together, and with staff, without staff, whatever the case is, we'll ask our Mr. Belchamber next week. But if we could have an annual priority setting, typically from the program I went to through the municipality, it needs to precede typically business planning and budget schedule, and typically it's both a blue sky ideas and practical realities, but trying to keep things on track. So we're focused, and the staff we are clear on direction for this year. There's a lot of things that have happened, obviously, with COVID that's sent everything upside down. So if we're in agreement to start off the year on direction, things will change, but I think it's better for us, the staff, and the community.
So you're going to proceed with questioning how that happens with Mr. Belchamber, and then you would bring that back as perhaps a motion
Right.
to proceed? Okay. That sounds good. Okay. Any other councillor comments? Just two things. We don't meet again in January, but next week, of course, is Bell Let's Talk. So basically on what Councillor Regan was saying, make sure you look after your own mental health, watch out for those that struggle with mental health issues, and remember Bell's helpline is available, and always make sure that you are there to be a shoulder or an ear to somebody who wants to talk with you. And then also, it was interesting that Councillor Regan used the "How you doing" line, because the Women's Caucus of Middlesex County is hosting another event on February the 4th. It's a Thursday evening, 7 o'clock. And the event details can be found on my social media. It can be found on through the Middlesex County website. And we're inviting women across the county. And basically that's what it is. It's a check-in to find out, to hear how they are doing during the stresses of the day, the challenges of the pandemic. It's a follow-up from our conversation that we started in November, and we're just checking in with them. We do have a psychologist that will be joining us to help us with some helpful hints as to how to get through. So again, this is all follow-up from our conversations with the Lieutenant Governor and the work that we've started there. So if you know any women across the county, of course, all the staff at the township are, of course, welcome to join in, but make sure that maybe you send out that invitation to women that are important to you in your life. There's no other comments. There's no changes to budget. Any notices of motion? And then we will move on into our motions and accounts paid. So the first one is resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph receive the attached accounts as paid for information as follows. For December 2020, $2,094,256.96. And can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the council direct staff to complete an application, or to complete 2 applications for the RED program as presented in report number EDC-01-2021, and that a budget amount of $17,500 be allocated for 2021. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders, Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Lucan Biddulph supports the 2021 census and encourages all residents to complete their census questionnaire online at www.census.gc.ca. Accurate and complete census data support programs and services that benefit our community. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan. Seconder, Councillor Mastarakis. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph authorize Daniel Regan to attend the Roma virtual conference on January 25th and 26th, 2021 at a registration cost of $550 plus HST. A mover and seconder for that, please.
Remember, Daniel, tomorrow this is pre-spent money when we talk budgets. Okay.
Councillor Mastarakis has moved that. A seconder. Deputy Mayor. And all opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph authorize Jeff Little and Alex Westman to attend the OGRA virtual conference from February 22nd, 2021 to February 25th, 2021 at a registration cost of $655 plus HST per person. Can I get a mover and seconder for that one, please? Councillor Regan and Councillor Mastarakis. All opposed? And that is carried. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph adopt the following revised corporate policy. Policy number 101-02-2021, the electronic signatures policy. And can I get a mover and seconder for this one, please? Councillor Westman, and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the council accept the recommendation of the Public Works Manager as identified in report number PW-02-2021 and direct staff to proceed with a public notice for discussion of a possible water and wastewater rate increase at the regular council meeting scheduled for March 16th, 2021. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Manders, and all opposed. And that's carried. Resolved that if no one cares to speak to these bylaws on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, read a third time and passed, and that they be numbered 04-2021, execution of site plan amending agreement for the TVDSB, 05-2021, execution of agreement Perth South Boundary Agreement, 06-2021, the confirming bylaw, 200-2021 ZBA Old Clover Village Phase 4 removal of H symbol, and 201-2021 ZBA Holland Farms Limited. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Mastarakis and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:11 p.m. A mover and seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Westmond. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. It was good seeing you all. Take care.